I'm here at the studios of KALW, and we just finished doing a show about Native American history and Native American culture. And I am here with Derek Lemire. He's a Colville, Chippewa Cree Native American filmmaker. He co-directed the film Seventh Wave with Ben Alex Dupree, who's an enrolled member of the Colville Confederated Tribes in eastern Washington state. And Seventh Wave is a documentary about the annual tribal canoe journey off of the Pacific Northwest coast. It's playing at the American Indian Film Fest this Friday in San Francisco. The program starts at 1 o'clock. Thank you both for sticking around.
Thank you.
So I enjoyed our show. I mean, we talked about so many things. Native American history, museums, films.
It was
all over the map.
Parks.
Yeah, parks. Yosemite, what should be in the national parks in terms of history. Ben, Alex, what are your thoughts on just these conversations we have about the Native American experience and Native American history?
I think it's a dialogue that hasn't happened enough, and especially in places where people are more media savvy. You know, coming on your show was like an explosion. We had so many things we wanted to share, but we just couldn't get there, and the time went so fast that we realized that half of the things we discussed talking about didn't even come up in the conversation. So you realize that there's a larger dialogue that isn't happening, and that there's a lot of room for more.
So what were some of the things you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
Well, I think when we were talking about the inequality of the educational system as it pertains to the native students and grassroots movements of Native people coming and teaching kids a little bit more about how to identify their own culture, their own history. I think at one point I wanted to talk a little bit about finding good ideas as storytellers that excite Native students and Native people to tune into what we're creating. Timely issues, things that you might see on maybe Vice Channel or something, genetically modified foods and traditional Indian foods and cultures, and exciting things like what about one thing that always gets left out about Indian people is where do they find love? How do they continue this bloodline of Native people? Where's the Native sexuality? Is that a taboo? Is it, why are we all dressed so Puritan, like long dresses and covering our heads, and where's obviously people are falling in love and having kids and continuing the traditional Native ways. How does that happen? So there's a lot of issues that are still on the table as far as like what does it mean to be storytellers, and that brings us to kind of how we identify ourselves. We're modern storytellers, but we don't necessarily tie ourselves to anything in particular.
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned a little bit, we consider ourselves modern storytellers, but with respect to history. And I would say the heaviest part of being that is that everyone wants to know all these topics, and we have to be well-versed. And I was not super well-versed in some of the topics, but that is the cross we bear. We are trying to influence people to come out and talk about these issues. So maybe I don't have to. But hopefully with our storytelling, we're trying to educate the youth, trying to educate anyone that wants to come out and say their piece. Commentary, social commentary, bug us, bug you guys, bug anyone.
What we're also we're heavy on the entertainment slant. Like a lot of people are very invested in the idea of education. We're not really educators, we're entertainers. So in that sense, we're toning down a lot of what we're doing. We've got a lot of ideas in the future where it's comedy based, it's entertainment, it's narrative stories that have these issues and these ideas that we think are very prevalent in Indian and Native society right now, and that's why we're just starting out. I mean, this documentary, The Seventh Wave, is an amazing piece. It's a slice of life with coastal tribal people, but within that, there's a lot of entertainment value. It's not like a documentary that you would normally see. There's a lot of spirit in that. So we're just spirit chasers in that sense.
Yeah, I had a interesting conversation with my family. Our uncle passed away this summer, and my brother, who speaks the language, he speaks Salish, and he teaches it to kids. He runs or helps run a immersion school in Spokane, Salish School of Spokane. Check it out, support him. So they brought up my brother and I wasn't quite sure where I sat in this whole conversation because I knew he was going to go up, say a prayer, talk to the family in the language, and everyone clapped. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Everyone came up and shook our hands, and a comment that I got from my own aunt was, "So your brother speaks the language. He teaches our children. What do you do?" And I'm like, well, there was a time where being a high school graduate and a college graduate was enough. And that's where I came up with, I'm a modern day storyteller. Like, I am bearing that cross. I'm trying to take other people's stories, maybe not my story in particular, but bridge that gap with the youth, with other people. Share, our skills with other people, saying, like, this is a medium you can use. You don't have to just go by spoken word. Like, we are facilitators, more or less.
How do you guys decide what stories to tell? Because, whenever we do shows about Native American issues, and luckily we do a lot of them, unlike, many in the media, there's so much comes up. I mean, we got calls today about the history of Native Americans who were enslaved in the vineyards of California. People wrote in with book recommendations. Yeah, it's just there's so much, and understandably so, because so much of the history is either whitewashed or completely ignored. And so, how do you guys decide what projects to take on, what stories you want to tell?
You only have your perspective to tell the story. Unfortunately, there isn't a million other Native storytellers to individually tell the story of their region. But if you get too scatterbrained and start to try to focus on everyone else's story, then you lose focus on your own culture. I mean, we come from a tribe that has 12 bands, and out of those 12 bands, our blood shares maybe 3 or 4 of them. The Entiates, the Wenatchees, the Lakes, even part Umatilla. Our families have been, generations have been kind of growing together in that region for a long, long time. So we specifically can only speak from our traditional perspective, who our bloodlines are, who our fathers were, who our mother's families were, and being genuine and unique to that particular thing has to be good enough for this lifetime, because I'm not given any more time.
Yeah.
So we can only do what we can within our own means, and that's it.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for us as filmmakers, storytellers, social Native Americans, that we have to answer some of this, or there's times that you have to say, I don't know, and I had a moment where I was like, not that I didn't know, but I didn't know how to speak well for that issue. And that comes up a lot. A lot of people ask, why don't you have long hair? Why don't you speak the language? And you have to honestly answer that, and you're like, maybe that's not my path. My path is, like I said, facilitating as much as possible.
People really ask you why you don't have long hair?
Yeah, all the time. Like, why don't you, I could, or people thinking I'm, Mexican. Not that there's anything wrong with it, that's not me. And they're like, well, usually natives have long hair and no facial hair. And I'm like, I don't even know how to answer you, or how to even answer your question.
It makes basic conversations after a first introduction really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because people just don't hold back, Like, oh, that's cool, you're Native American. Yeah, my cousin dated one. He was really drunk all the time. Man,
Yeah.
I mean, he stole a lot of money, and you're like, okay, cool. Yeah, are you judging me because your friend dated somebody from, like, Alberta, Canada? That's not me, man. I don't know. Sorry. So don't, throw us all in the pot together,
We've been on a few different podcasts in Portland. And my dear friend, Sarah Dillon, she would introduce me before the show, and I had to correct her. She was like, this is my Native American friend, Derek. And I go, I'm just your friend, Derek. Like, they can ask if they like. Or how they introduce you as the Native American filmmaker. On this front, perfect, but I'm a filmmaker. My name is Derek. I am Native American, but that is not my whole identity. So
He's more than that.
Yeah, come on, guys.
He's more. He has a big heart.
Yeah. But.
Well, it's, gosh. I mean, yeah, my grandmother used to give talks in high schools, and the kids would ask her, you actually have 4 walls? And where are your moccasins?
Yeah.
You know, at the Indian Museum in Washington, D.C., I was mentioning this on the show today, but there was, I don't know if it's still there, a billboard outside that says, do Native Americans actually live in teepees? Come on in and find out.
Yeah.
And that's when you develop a really quick sense of humor.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know, are you renting?
Yeah. We tried to buy a house in San Francisco. We have to live
Yeah.
in
That's
It's
very
the
true.
only affordable living
It's the
here.
only affordable living.
Well, thank you guys for sticking around, and I'm really curious to see what's next from you, because I like this notion of being a modern-day Native American storyteller.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ben
we're
Alex
lucky.
Ben Alex Dupree is director of Seventh Wave. It's a documentary about the annual tribal canoe journey off the Pacific Northwest coast. And Derek Lemire is co-director of Seventh Wave, and it screens at the American Indian Film Fest this Friday in San Francisco. The program is at 1, and if you're not in San Francisco, you can look under this video to find a link to the trailer and a link to our show today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.